The theme of the presentation is Bioeconomy in the Era of COVID-19. Senior Research Fellow Dr. Youn Hee of Korea Institute for Industrial Economies and Trade will deliver a presentation. And before we start, I'm going to introduce the speaker briefly. And Dr. Choi graduated from Seoul National University and also earned master's and doctorate degree, and he had a postdoc career at Stanford and currently at Korea Institute for Industrial Economics and Trade with MOTI and Ministry of Science and ICT. Dr. Choi has been serving as a member and a commission member. Please, let's meet her.
Hello, everyone. I am Youn Hee, researching bioindustry policy at Korea Institute of Industry and Technology. The title of my presentation is Bioeconomy in the Era of COVID-19. Originally, my title was Bioeconomy in the post-COVID-19 era, but since the COVID-19 hasn't ended globally, especially recent proliferations trend happening in Korea, I renamed it as Bioeconomy in the Era of COVID-19. I'll be covering 4 chapters. First, I'll summarize the concept of bioeconomy in the 4th industrial era. And second, I will look into the changes taking place in the global demand and also the environmental factors, and also I will forecast development until 2030. Thirdly, I'll briefly introduce the current status of Korea's bioindustry built on the basis of national policy efforts and tell you how to evaluate Korea's competitiveness. Last but not least, I will reflect on what has been done so far, what were the issues in the policy area, and also what we need to do to activate bioeconomy. First chapter, I'll talk about the definition, concept, and the scope of bioeconomy and bioindustry. As you can see in this figure, the bioindustry is created based on innovation and convergence of biotechnology, and then the national cooperations created by the bioindustry building up in bioeconomy. Bioeconomic report published by OECD in 2009 predicted that by 2030, biotechnology will have a significant economic effects in the field of resources, industry, and healthcare. The bioindustry is largely divided into the red bioindustry, where biotechnology in the health and medical field is used, and green bioindustry, where biotechnology in the agri-food field is used, and the white bio business that uses biotechnology in the industrial process and energy field. At the center of these industries, research, development using real and information resources such as gene and also organisms. Bioeconomy is transforming into data and AI-based bioeconomy in the era of the 4th industrial revolutions. I believe everyone is familiar with the keywords of the 4th industrial revolution. Representative keywords are cyber, logistic systems, and platform-based development. As you can see in this picture, cyber world that describes the real world as information is built with a cyber twin, and design and production services are performed around the platform. In other words, by utilizing data and artificial intelligence, the designs and production process efficiently implemented in the cyber world are used to streamline the productions and service process in the real world. These standards are also being applied in the bio field. First of all, there are Watson Oncology that supports cancer diagnosis by medical staff using medical information in the medical area, and virtual R&D that develops new drugs. In this slide, you can see how the data and AI-based bioeconomy in the red bioindustry in the healthcare sector works at each stage in the value chain. In the real world, R&D productions and market monitoring are carried out. All of the information and data of these stages are introduced into the cyber world, and the digital twin value chains are being implemented in each stage of the value chain. The development of new drugs, new medical devices, and new medical services are taking place in the cyber world, and the world of designing and simulating the clinical trials in the cyber world has begun. In the slide, you can see the model in which humans in the real world are implemented as a cyber world efficiently. My life, as you can see here, all the information and biological health and medical informations are implemented by Youn Hee Choi in the cyber world and analyzed by AI so that you can diagnose and give advice on how to manage various lifestyles and disease so that Youn Hee Choi can live healthy and efficient life in the real world. As you can see here, the bioeconomy in the healthcare field, consumers are emerging as a core member of the industrial ecosystem that is a super consumers investing important health and medical information resources such as genetic information and real-life information. In other words, consumers are not just consumers who passively use products and services made in the industry, but have become a major stakeholder in the ecosystem that directly share resources and participate more actively in the development and productions of products and services. This rise of the role of consumers is phenomenal that occurs not only in the bioeconomy but also in the digital economy and the sharing economy as a whole. As you can think of the example like sharing economy such as Uber system or share house like Airbnb, which shares vehicles and consumers become producers and suppliers. In the agri-food sectors, the transitions to a data AI-based bioeconomy is taking place. A representative example is the Data Bio project in the EU. Projects supported by EU Horizon program include 17 European countries and 48 partners, and more than 26 pilot projects are underway. As you can see here in this picture, various data are collected from agricultures and forestries and are analyzed using AI. This objective of the project is to increase the efficiency of agricultural productions and to increase the fisheries and also to prevent pests and in the forestry as well. So far, we have looked into the data AI-based bioeconomy. So, what are the key elements of the data AI-based bioeconomy? As you might have guessed, the most important resources are data and information. Resources in the real world and information in the cyber world are the most important resources. Of course, various innovative technologies are also key resources. And finally, system competitiveness is also very important, such as system that share and cooperates with the resources and social acceptance of disruptive innovation. So, what is most important factors? Can a bioeconomy be fully realized as long as we have technological competitiveness? I think it is very important how balanced and the competitiveness of these three key elements is secured. In the slide, formula is expressed that a future benefit of the society and nations are multiplied by a multiplier of innovation. Here, the outcome of innovation is not the benefit of some stakeholders, but the product of overall national benefits and the individual benefit. And the value of the data is not just the total amount of data, but also the qualitative competitiveness through which the data is connected, combined, and shared. The competitiveness of these data, the qualitative competitiveness of the multiplier of innovation will produce the country's future benefits. Next, I'll talk about the global status and the future prospect of the bioeconomy. As you can see here, the most important field of bioeconomy is the healthcare. That is because the most important resources for the bioeconomy is living organisms, and the representative organisms are human beings. Aging is progressing around the world. Korea is the fastest aging country among them. Due to the aging population, the medical financial burden of each country for disease and health management is increasing day by day. In the graph, you can see the rate of increase in medical expenses compared to GDP. The average annual growth rate in Korea's medical expenditure relative to GDP is very large since 2010. The annual average is increasing to 3.4% faster. Also, the rise of bioeconomy in the era of the fourth industrial revolution is due to the rapid increase in biodata resources. As the next generation genome analysis technology advances, the price of whole genome sequencing in human is plummeting. The amount of the genetic information is increasing exponentially. Currently, the genomic and genetic analysis companies such as the 23 are enabling whole genome sequencing in human at the level of 1 million Korean won. As a result, the amount of the genetic information analyzed is also increasing significantly. Thanks to the increase in data, the bioeconomy is no longer the only stage for biotech economy with wet tracks or laboratory that use water. Companies with the data analysis technology, that is, companies that are not related to biotechnology, have begun to play an active part in the bioeconomy ecosystem. IT companies and chemical companies are developing new drugs and new medical technologies, developing agro foods such as GMOs, developing eco-friendly products for bioplastics. I have mentioned to you so far that the global healthcare market is expanding day by day due to global aging trend and the trend of disruptive technology innovations and technology convergence and important socio-economic environment changes such as the spread of the bioinformation. As you can see from the table on the slides, in vitro diagnostic and digital health market is growing very fast. The digital health market has an average annual growth rate of 16.8% from 2014 to 2020. The bioindustry, which is affected by the global economic crisis and the low growth trend, also began to recover in 2011. This recovery is led by the US and Europe, which accounts for 3/4 of the global bioindustry. The slide shows the current status of the bio in 2020. Thanks to the next generations of the gene analytic technology, the whole genome sequencing is possible as soon as you are born, and if there's no treatment effect, insurance premiums are not provided. Like this, online meeting by disease group of appearing at a global level, like a patients like me. This slide shows the growth trends of the bioindustry throughout the year of 2030. The bioindustry is expected to grow at an annual average rate of 7% by 2030. It is expected to grow by 7.4% by 2018 and 2025 by 6.7% by 2030. Korea's demand is a little faster than the global demand average, so it is expected to grow at 6.9%, and export is likely to grow at 12%. This slide is what the OECD predicts for the 2030 in 2009. The global bioeconomy is expected to expand continuously until 2030 due to the rise of the global issues such as the population growth, change in demographic structure, and energy environment changes such as food and healthcare problems. Trends such as outbreak of new infectious disease caused by environmental changes have already begun since the coronavirus broke out in early 2020. For more details, please refer to my slides. Based on this bioeconomic growth prospect, countries around the world are in a fierce competition to secure competitiveness. The point to note here is that in order to secure competitiveness in the data AI-based economy, it is necessary to secure the competitiveness of the resources, technology, together with the three factors that I have described before. I'd like to emphasize that the major countries in the world are promoting policies to expand acceptance to secure not only supply competitiveness, such as technological innovation, but also social system competitiveness. From now, let's take a look at the competitiveness of our country. In this slide, you can see the major policies the Korean government has pushed so far to revitalize the bioeconomy. The establishment of the Genetic Engineering Promotion Act in 1983 and the first basic plan for biotechnology promotions in 1994, that was the starting point of the Korean government's national bioindustry policy. The first basic plan for biotechnology promotion began in 1994. Since then, the amount of investment in R&D in biofield by Korean government increased by 17.4% per year on average. Looking at the latest policies, there's a biohealth industry innovation strategy that was announced in May 2019. In this innovation strategy, it has been announced that it will focus on fostering the biohealth industry as the national flagship industry. By announcing the visions to promote people-centered innovative growth through the development of the biohealth industry, we announced that we will achieve the visions by overcoming rare and intractable disease, expanding people's living and health information, enhancing economic vitality, and creating jobs. Core tasks include creating biohealth technology innovation ecosystems, rationalizing licensing regulations at a global level, enhancing biohealth production activities, and supporting shared growth, supporting market entries, and promoting overseas expansions. Another major policy announced in 2019 is the Advanced Regenerative Medicine and Advanced Biopharmaceutical Safety and Support Act, which passed National Assembly plenary session in August last year. Based on this law, we have reorganized the product approval verification system, which is operated mainly on synthetic drugs, to follow the characteristic of advanced biopharmaceutical and strengthen approval and review of the KFDA. In addition, clinical research procedures for the treatment of intractable disease have been made possible, and development and commercializations of the stem cells and gene therapy are expected to be activated. The Ministry of Science and ICT is playing a key role in research and development investment in the biofield. In this slide, you can see the major areas of the R&D investment in the biofield of the Ministry of Science and ICT in 2019. Thanks to the active policy investment of the Korean government and the efforts by the private companies, the Korean bioindustry has grown rapidly. When the first basic plan for biotechnology promotion began in 1994, the average annual growth rate of the Korean bioindustrial production has reached 18.6% until 2018. You can see here in the slides more detailed statistics. Productions in the Korean bioindustry grew from 2000 to 2018, 7.7%. In particular, since 2010, export competitiveness has increased very rapidly, increasing to an annual average of 9.9%, far exceeding the growth rate of the productions. When looking only at the biopharmaceutical sector, you can see that the exports are growing rapidly, reaching at an annual average of 12%. However, despite the growth trend, the Korean bioindustry has very low share in the global market. As of 2018, it has not exceeded the 2% level. It is regrettable. Korean bioindustry has also grown significantly in technological commercialization competitiveness. As of 2018, out of 61 IPO listed companies, 52 were bio companies. It has also shown a great result in technology export. Biotechnology export from 2013 to 2018 amounted to 18 trillion won. Korean bio companies have secured very fast technological competitiveness. As evidence, Korean pharmaceutical companies only produced simple copy products until 1980s. However, in the 1990s, we started producing generic products with expired patents, and after 2000, we started developing new drugs. In the slides, you can see the top 10 companies in the Korean drug development pipeline at the end of 2017. Daewoong Pharmaceutical Company ranked first and has 41 pipelines, followed by Jonggeundang and Hanmi Pharma. In the development stage, the number of the preclinical pipeline is the largest. It appears that the phase 1 clinical phase and the candidate substance phase. As you can see here from the table, the competitiveness of the pipeline, the phase 2 clinical trials and phase 3 clinical trials just before entering the market in the post-clinical stage is insufficient compared to that of the other stages. Currently, the competitiveness of the Korean bio industry is represented in the fields of productions and biosimilars. We have the world number 1 biopharmaceutical production capacity centered on the conglomerates such as Celltrion and Samsung Biologics. In the biosimilar fields, it occupies more than 60% of the global market. Also, with the COVID-19 outbreak in 2020, Korea is leading the world in development and productions of the diagnostic kit. The competitiveness due to the introductions of the emergency use approval systems established in 2016 after the MERS outbreak, and also in 2020, thanks to this system, government policy support and close cooperation between the private sectors and the government and the public sector, Korea is taking prominent positions in the export of the diagnostic devices and test kits, quarantine supplies, and biopharmaceuticals in 2020. The biofield, which is 12th in the export item ranking 2019, rose to the 6th place in the first half of the 2020. It has been upgraded by 4 stages. As of the first half of 2010, exports of the healthcare industry increased by 27% compared to the same period in 2019. However, the competitiveness of the developing vaccines and new drugs against COVID-19 is still insufficient. In case of the vaccines, Genexin is going through the first phase of the clinical trials, and several other pharma companies are beginning preclinical and clinical trials in the second half of 2020. From now, I'd like to look into the problems with the Korean bioeconomy in more detail. I will explain how overseas are evaluating Korea's biocompetitiveness. Ever since 2014, the U.S. Scientific American Worldwide View evaluations has always assessed 54 countries, and Korea ranked 24th out of 54 countries in 2016, which is 26 out of the 50 countries in 2018, which is a slight decline. Excluding major developed countries, it is regrettable that we are ranking lower than that of the other countries such as Hong Kong, Estonia, Lithuania, and Iceland. If you look at the indicators with those scores, you can see that the scores of the number of the public companies, sales, and bio-innovation capabilities are particularly low. In the evaluation, the field of corporate environment is not high. The evaluation of education and manpower is not so good. In particular, talent invitation, the professional manpower has scored quite low. In terms of the R&D investment, the ratio of R&D investment to GDP received full score of 10, but compared to the amount of such government investment to the government policy efficiency is not so high. In a survey of companies done by other consulting firm, it was found out that there is a high level of the dissatisfactions regarding Korean market and investment environment. Here, let's look at the overseas evaluation in terms of the data utilization competitiveness, which is the most important resources in data AI-based bioeconomy. Among the 20 countries evaluated by the OECD, Korea ranked second among 20 countries for its ability to retain health data, but access to data is ranked in the bottom 5 out of the 20 countries. Then, in the last chapter, I'd like to share with you the policy concerns that we need to work on to address in order to activate the bioeconomy. First, let's look at the policies that have been implemented so far. Things that we have been doing good are such as technological competitiveness enhancement in the Korean bio industry through active R&D investment. Especially, it is a great achievement to secure certain portions in the advanced bio field. However, a previously emphasized technological competitiveness alone cannot activate the bioeconomy. It is necessary to look back on whether the technological competitiveness accumulated in Korea has spread the industry and ultimately generated socio-economic benefit. There was a case where innovative products and services such as the diabetic and on-site diagnostic device cell therapy were unable to enter into Korean market due to the social conflict within the national market, so it was launched in overseas market first. In addition, there have been many cases where smart healthcare related products and services have given up entry into the domestic market and attempted to enter overseas market from the very beginning due to the domestic environment such as the domestic legal system. The policy to enhance social acceptance was not promoted well-balanced manner, so innovative products and services were not able to enter into the domestic consumer market due to the conflict with the interest among the stakeholders. The Korean government has made a lot of policy efforts, including various R&D investment. However, I think that the policy to strengthen the fundamental competitiveness is insufficient because it focuses on making short-term results of the bio industry. So far, the policy has played big role in revitalizing the industry and economy, but I think that it has not escaped the pursuit of innovation policy. In a data AI based bioeconomic ecosystem, policies to promote participation of private companies and consumers are very important. It is necessary to actively consider what role the government should play in securing the competitiveness of the three main elements of accumulating resources, establishment of innovative technology development system, how to encourage the participation of companies and private consumers. Now let's look at the major issues of the bioeconomic policies. First and foremost, innovation and regulation. In order to revitalize the bioeconomy, the balance between the promotions of innovations and regulation is very important. To do this, it is necessary to understand the stakeholder structures in bioeconomic ecosystems and comprehensively analyze the benefit of the defensive and resisting stakeholders as well as challenging and accepting stakeholders. How to secure accountability, consistency, transparency in Korean regulatory system, how to restore social trust, and to secure smart regulatory system regulation is very important. I think that the conflict that makes it difficult to balance regulation with the promotions of innovations, begin with the social anxiety that the distributions of benefit in ecosystem will be unfair. Therefore, a system that strives to ensure that the benefit arising from the bioeconomy are not only returned to the profit of some of the affected parties, but a system that strives to be distributed fairly to various stakeholders in a society. For example, it is necessary to establish a national network systems that can listen to the opinions of demanding stakeholders in addition to resisting stakeholders and discuss how the overall benefit of the countries arise. In such a network, specific discussions need to be made on how to allocate revenues for business and services providers, how to build reasonable prices, and how to allocate incentives. In the same vein, it is important to discuss the publicity rising from the outcome of innovation. That is because the various benefits arising from the technological innovations and the growth of the bio industry can be linked to the expansions of the public welfare. In order to revitalize the virtuous cycle structure, it is important to restore social trust, especially those of the resisting consumers. Now, the issue of the divisions of the roles between the government and the private sector. The government needs to discuss which side of the policy should be focused on in the future. Due to the need for the long-term and large-scale R&D, it is important to save market failure in a policy manner, and the role of the government is also important. However, As I mentioned before, it is important to achieve the policy effect of the revitalizing bioeconomy when technological competitiveness, such as the resource competitiveness, technological competitiveness systems, etc. Therefore, the government needs to focus its policies on proactively promoting policies to secure system competitiveness and balancing the competitiveness in the three key elements: resource, technology, and system. The next key issue is the manpower supply and demand issues. Every year in Korea, about 15,000 graduates with a degree in the field of bioindustry. However, the employment rate is lower than the average employment rate in science and engineering, and the rate of enrollment in higher level courses for a bachelor's graduate is close to 30%. Also, the rate of the startups and companies is very low, and those with a master's and doctorate degrees who graduate from abroad, most of them wants to go to school and research. Israel can be compared to Korea. Israel is recognized for its competitiveness in the bioindustry. Startups of the graduates, such as master's and doctorate degrees, are not only internal to Israel but also actively taking place in the U.S. and other countries. In the future, how to cultivate talented people with entrepreneurial spirit who actively participates in the innovative ecosystem is very important. This is a policy task. It is necessary to actively promote the cultivations of professionals with a global competitiveness through the network with the overseas. Recently, COVID-19 is re-proliferating through. Therefore, we should have a smart healthcare system. As of February 2020, the Korean government temporarily allowed phone treatment or remote treatment to stop the spread of the COVID-19. Based on the contactless treatment experience gained through COVID-19, we need to establish a smart healthcare system. Korea's biotechnology competitiveness, IT, and 5G network, these can provide a real-time patient monitoring and very smart healthcare services in emergency situation by utilizing their technological competitiveness. In addition, it will be an opportunity for a leap into the future as we can secure competitiveness in the development of the infectious disease and incurable disease treatment. As Korea suffered from the MERS and COVID-19 virus, the quarantine and diagnostic system capabilities have improved greatly, and the global reliability has also improved. However, as I have explained before, the competitiveness of developing new drugs for the infectious disease and incurable disease is still insufficient. It is necessary to strengthen the competitiveness in the new drug development field through the active government policies and cooperation. Through these various issues review and evaluation, we need to present a future bioeconomic policy as the right policy directions. System competitiveness must be strengthened by cultivating both accepting the social demand condition along with the supply competitiveness, such as technology and resources. In particular, I'd like to emphasize the benefit of bioeconomy using data AI. These are very important to secure data resources, to use the resources in connection. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
It was very impressive to see virtual avatar of Dr. Choi. After the pandemic, the industry will be able to take another leap forward.